My guest today is Rhian from Opersonic.
Hey, Gareth.
Hi, you alright?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Yes, good. What do you think of the weather?
Oh, well, a bit of rain yesterday, but I'm loving the sun this afternoon.
Could ask a British person about the weather. So, what is Opersonic?
Well, it's an opera company, but it's an opera company with a bit of a difference because it's all about making opera with young people. It's something I'm really passionate about. I've done it almost all of my working life. I really believe that young people get opera. If you ask a 7-year-old about an opera and take them to see it and show them an opera, they'll just go, well, it's a story with some music, which is exactly what it is. So they get it completely, wholeheartedly, whereas adults will say, oh, I don't know about opera, that's a bit tricky, I'm not really sure I'll get it. And actually a lot of people do get opera very quickly when they come for the first time.
I think a lot of people think it's just about the voice, but there is actually acting and stuff, isn't it?
Well, it's a complete art form. So, you've got the music, and you've got the design, and you've got the drama, and you've got the writing, the libretto, and all rolled into one. So, it isn't just about the singing. The singing, obviously, is the bit that we know about, because we know about the 3 tenors, and we know about Catherine Jenkins. Those really unusual voices are the ones that you generally hear.
Yeah.
And those are the points where, like Wyn Evans on the Go Compare advert, those are the points where people see opera in popular culture.
I suppose that's what it is. It's been reduced to just the voice, but it is, like you said, more than that.
Yeah, I mean, the really big hitter opera composers of the 19th century, like Puccini and Verdi, were masterstroke storytellers. They tell amazing stories. And that's what opera's about, really.
So why young people?
Because I think that the art form kind of has this aura around it, about it being a bit fusty and a bit museum based. It's almost like the museum of all that 19th century music. And I think it's an art form. It's not a museum piece. It's not something that belongs in a museum. It's something for now. So let's reinvent it. Let's make it for now. And who are the best people to do that? Well, not me. I'm in my 40s. It's much better to hand it over to young people.
How did the idea come about then? You're obviously passionate about it. What made you think, I want to set this up?
Well, I spent 8 years working for Welsh National Opera, running their youth and community programme, and did some amazing projects. Really, really had a lot of fun. And they've got an amazing youth opera who does brilliant work. But a lot of the projects were all about connecting people back to the Verdi and the Puccini operas. Which is absolutely fine and completely valid for Welsh National Opera. It's what they need to be doing. But I was very interested in new work, commissioning new work for a young audience and commissioning new work with a young audience. And we did some of that at Welsh National Opera, but I just wanted to put myself into a space where I didn't have to worry about that. Oh yes, but we must be doing something for the latest Verdi opera. And kind of go, well, yeah, forget all of that. Let's just make a piece that young people want to make, that they want to make now. Let's use their ideas. Let's hand all the control over to them. And let's see what happens.
Has that worked out well then, giving them the control?
Well, you came to see Newport Legends. There were 4 operas there written by different groups of people. We had a group from Maindy that was community, but then the other 3 were all young people from schools in Newport. And although we'd started with a story, a lot of the music was theirs, a lot of the text was theirs, a lot of the staging ideas, we were working together with them and they were devising them. Did it work for you?
It worked for me, yeah. I think I didn't realise they wrote it. It was quite professional, yeah. So tell us more about that then, about Newport Legends.
Well, again, Opersonic's only really been going for about 2 years, and in the first year we put some feelers out. We did a project called Port Songs for Big Splash, which was great, and we were just collecting stories about Newport and making them into song. And while we were doing that project, I started to think, there are really great stories out there, Newport stories that need telling. And I grew up here, and I know that we're really good at putting ourselves down. Aren't we? We're a bit good at that. We're a bit good at saying, there's Cardiff.
We can be quite pessimistic.
We can. There's Cardiff over there where, Newport's not as good as it should be. Actually, there's loads going on in Newport. Loads of amazing people. I keep meeting them every day. And there's loads of stories from the past, from the present. So I just thought, well, maybe we should do a big project that would kind of introduce Opersonic to the city, and would also be about really celebrating the fact that Newport's an amazing city. Mm. So that's what we set out to do.
I watched the the musical play. I watched that, and I didn't read the synopsis, but quite quickly I thought, I know what this is about. This is about history. Yeah. I picked it up quite quickly, which is good. And what were the 4 stories?
So the 4 stories that we started off with the different groups were the Legend of the Flood, which is in 1607 there was a flood of the Gwent Levels, and in fact I'm sure there was a documentary on BBC back in like 2000 or something that said that they thought it was a tsunami. They'd kind of come up with this idea that it was a tsunami, but it flooded all the villages in the Gwent Levels, and lots of people lost their lives. And there are some really dry accounts of it. Back in various, like Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote about it, various old medieval historical accounts of it. So I was quite interested in that idea of starting with the sea and the Gwent Levels, and then I also found a ghost story that was based in that basically a figure had been seen on top of one of the church towers in one of the Gwent Levels villages, and I thought, oh my God, I wonder if that ghost could somehow connect back to the story of the flood. So we ended up with this kind of crazy little legend about the flood happening and the woman on the tower, and then the woman losing her husband to the flood, but then always being on the tower watching out. And then just at the very end, the children saying, she's still on the tower. Is she a woman or is she a ghost? We don't know. So that was the first one. Right. And we did that with St Michael's Primary School in Pill. Right. Who were great. They came up with some lovely ideas.
So you just sort of grabbed their choir, their group?
We started a group. So all the school's groups, we've started our own groups and worked after school, and basically went in and recruited and just said who's up for it. And then people opted in.
Sounds good, yeah. For those who didn't get to see the play, will it be acted again? Will it be in the front again?
It's one of those things when you do a big community project like this that it tends to be a one-off, or there tend to be 2 performances, because it's such a big logistical thing to get all of those people together and get all of them ready, especially when you've got community performers. They need a lot of care and attention and a lot of time to get them to a point where they feel confident to walk out onto that stage. So it's not an easy thing to bring that back to life.
That's very considerate of you.
Well, I think that's you need to do that. If you're going to ask people to put themselves on the line and stand up there, you make sure that they've got everything they need to do that. It's very important. But what we do have is we've got a really great video documentation of the piece. So I'm hoping that once my videographer comes back to me, we can kind of make some little snippet extracts and put them out there on social media so people can see it who didn't get a chance to come.
That sounds good, and people can simply Google Opersonic, can't they?
They certainly can.
What's the benefit of children learning opera? Going back to the roots.
Yeah. I mean, I think that any engagement with the arts, for me, is a right for young people. They should be able to do that, and it's an important thing in our lives, really, engaging with the arts, because it gives us a space to think, to dream, to explore different perspectives, to play, and that it's a fundamental thing that human beings need to do. So the arts creates that space. And it's also a place for debate. So, one of the legends that we did was the legend of Tom Prothero. And that was the debate that was going on in the room with those young people around, Tom Prothero was saying, no, you poor people, get away, you don't deserve money and you can't have your rights. And we had a poor group of young, who were playing the poor, saying, no, we want our rights. And we had a really lively debate then in the room about, well, hang on a minute, what was it like to be those people in that time? Not having the vote and wanting that and having to fight for it and having to put themselves on the line. So they could explore that in an imaginative and creative way through opera. For me, I'm passionate about opera, so I love that idea of being able to sing that. I think what opera offers as an art form is sometimes a chance to really get inside people's heads.
Right.
Because you can arias, which are the kind of song part of opera, where one person is singing, are generally about their thoughts and their feelings and their hopes and their desires, but it's like almost like a suspended, extended moment exploring what's going on in somebody's head. And that, that's quite rare, really, to have that chance to do that.
And also, I don't know if it's done on purpose, but when you hear vocals from an opera singer, it's quite emotional. They seem very deep notes. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, and if you're in a room with somebody who's singing like that, it touches you physically. You feel that vibration in your body. So it's a way of reaching across a space and touching someone physically, even though you're not using your body to do that. You're just using your voice.
You mentioned how arts is good for not just children, but everyone. How are you funded? Because obviously there's a lot of cuts being made to arts. How do you manage?
Yeah, it's a bit like magic, I think. You just have to kind of... Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult out there at the moment, especially with trusts and foundations. So a lot of the arts is funded through different trusts and foundations who support that work. We also get funded by the Arts Council. So I've got some money to develop a production that we're doing at the moment called Nightmare Scenario,
right,
which we're developing with the Riverfront, and that's been funded by Arts Council Wales. And obviously they are there specifically to fund the arts, but there's a lot of competition over getting that money. And obviously they're expecting certain things from the people that they do fund. So, which is great because we need to be all be thinking of professionally, really. But it's tricky, it's not... You have to search quite long and hard to find the right funders and the right places to get money. And I think there's huge amounts of collaboration and partnership happening now. So some of Newport Legends was funded by Communities First, Newport Central Communities First.
All right.
We also had some money from Newport Live. So it's looking for multiple funders, and we also ran a crowdfunding campaign, and we had, I think, about 50 different crowdfunder contributors, which was amazing.
That's awesome, yeah. Is it that then you can't get like funding for a year or whatever? Can you only get funding a bit at a time then per project?
That's the way it is at the moment, yeah. So we're project funded. The Arts Council does have regularly funded organisations, so they have what they call their national portfolio, and that includes a number of organisations. So the Riverfront, for instance, is one of those regularly funded organisations, and they will get then a funding agreement for a number of years from Arts Council Wales with an agreed figure that will mean they can plan. But it's much harder to plan when you're project funded, because you're constantly thinking, right, well, where am I going to get that money from? Okay, I got to find...
Yes, it's hard to set stuff in stone, I suppose. And
Yeah.
So it's a non-for-profit organisation. How do you fund yourself and your life?
Well, I've got many, many other hats, Gareth.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Are they artistic then?
Yeah, they're all artistic. Yeah, absolutely. They're all really bound up with arts and people, so what I call participatory arts.
Right.
So I'm a creative agent, which is Arts Council are running a big thing called a Lead Creative Schools scheme at the moment, and I'm working with Liswary High School at the moment to put creative projects in different curriculum subjects, and that's really interesting. Great school, they're really doing amazing things down there. And I'm also working with a European network, and Reseo, which basically works with opera and dance education, and I'm helping them to run a conference in Dusseldorf in the autumn. So it's fingers in lots of pies.
Do you ever get tired of opera?
Oh no, okay. Definitely not.
That's good.
No. I mean, there's so much of it out there, and it's always endlessly. There's lots of, it's always bringing up lots of different subjects, lots of different issues, and it's always incredibly ravishing. When you go and listen to it, some of the pieces out there, some of the Wagner, some of the Verdi, you just sit back and let it wash over you. It's beautiful music.
Quite a blunt question I have is there a market for opera? Is there enough demand for it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask that question, should we really be doing it? But people still pack out the theatres, and, we've got a lot of opera being streamed in cinemas now as well.
Right.
From the Met and from the Royal Opera House. And from Glyndebourne, and people are going along. There seems to be big demand for that. It's a different way to engage with perhaps an organisation like the Royal Opera House, which seems untouchable and is very expensive to go to. But you can go down, the retail park and watch it in a cinema in Newport if you want to.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point. It connects people who can't afford it or can't get to that location with that performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my overall ambition really is to make Newport the centre of opera for young people.
Okay.
So watch this space. 10 years maybe, I'll be there.
Okay. That sounds good. What's the difference between Opersonic and the Dolmen Theatre or the Riverfront?
Yeah, I mean, Opersonic is a company, not a venue. So,
right.
I mean, we would make work to present in a venue rather than be a receiving house or something like that. And obviously, the Dolmen, it has lots of different organisations performing in it, mainly amateur organisations, but they're doing amazing work in the community. And I think that's the important thing for the arts, is that there's a continuum of lots and lots of organisations doing amazing work out there. And it's how we all join up, how we all partner, and how we all keep passing the message on together. So really, I think all of those places, I would hope, I've not partnered with the Dolmen, but it'd be lovely to do that. But I am partnering with the Riverfront. And I think the more we work together to kind of spread the message and get more people involved in the arts, the better.
That sounds good. For people who are yet to discover opera, who would you say to them to listen to first? Who's an easy one to listen to get them to give them a taste, I suppose, to see if they like it?
Puccini I would go for. Okay. So Madame Butterfly, for instance, which is very tragic and always makes me cry. Or La Bohème, which is a story of kind of students in Paris. Of course, there's always, this is the way it goes with 19th century opera, there's always the heroine that dies at the end.
Oh, right.
There's always a bit of death at the end, unfortunately. They were very into killing off their women.
Oh.
I think that's just the way it was.
Okay.
But, feminine frailty seems to attract those composers at the time.
Oh, right.
But they are beautiful, beautiful pieces. I mean, I've worked on La Bohème, most recently, actually, and in the Albert Hall for Raymond Gubet. I revived that show 3 times, and it was fantastic to do that. It's got some absolutely ravishing pieces of music in it. It's got real fun scenes as well. So scene 2 is, out in the Montmartre market at Christmas, and they have lots of fun. And there's kind of this character called Musetta who's got this rich man that's following her around, and she dupes him and ends up stealing things from him and running off with Marcello, who's an artist instead.
Oh, right.
And, yeah. So, Puccini is good because they tend to be quite short.
Right.
And to the point. So you're not going in for 5-hour pieces, which, opera's kind of fabled for having very, very long pieces. But that's mainly Wagner's fault.
Right.
Because he wrote really long operas. And he just went, oh, for God's sake, they're just too long. So, but Puccini's a lot of fun.
Okay. For those who actually want to get into singing opera or performing opera themselves, what advice would you give them? So people listening to this thinking, I'd love to do it, what can they do or where can they go?
Start singing.
Okay.
Just start singing today. Find yourself a choir and go and join a choir, preferably one that's got a classical slant to it, although, you can certainly join any choir, because the more you sing, the more you start to explore your voice. And, although we've talked about the fact that opera is drama and it has all these different things in it, the voice is the key tool by which you're communicating. So the thing that characterises opera is that voice, and the fact that those singers can get their vocal cords to resonate in a very particular way, which means they can throw their voice without having a microphone. So that is the key thing that everybody knows about opera, that loud voice, that projected voice. So the more you start to sing, because that singing training takes a long time to get to that point where you can train your muscles to do that in a very natural way. So sing, but also act, and get out there and watch it and get passionate about it.
Okay, well, just to finish off on then, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, as you mentioned, we can Google Opersonic, and we have a website, www.opersonic.co.uk. I think if you go to the contact page, it's got my email address there. And I'm very happy to hear from anybody who's interested.
Awesome, okay.
We've also got a Facebook page and a Twitter feed, so we're all over social media, Instagram. So some of our pictures from the current production are up there already if people want to go and see what Newport legends look like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, Rhian, thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.